Please welcome the one and the only Michael Caine. I'm going to ask the floor for questions. I'm sure you will have fascinating questions. Be aware, you probably are already, there are cameras at the back of the room, so we are being filmed. I hope that doesn't make you nervous.
Yeah, I get a bit nervous when I'm being filmed, but I've got no dialogue to remember, so it's all right.
We'll get there. We'll be all right.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the very beginning of the story, and I want to ask about you first becoming involved in youth. I mean, tell us how that happens. Presumably, the phone rings.
This movie.
Your agent says hello, and then
what happened was my agent rang me, and she said, "I've got a script here from Paolo Sorrentino." Well, I knew him because I'd seen all his work, although I hadn't realised until I looked him up. I'd seen everything he'd done. But he just won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Film for Great Beauty, so I knew who he was. And I said, you got a film from me, from Paolo Sorrentino? And I couldn't put it together how he would. She said, yes, and he's written it for you, and if you don't do it, he won't make the movie. And I went, what? And I almost over the phone said, it's okay, I'll do it. But I was very professional. I said, send me a script. And so I got the script and I read it and I loved it, and and that was it. But I was amazed that Paolo knew who I was, because I seemed to come from a different thing. I don't know. It just he just wasn't on the same planet as me. He still isn't. As you showed the movie, I mean, this is incredible. I mean, I've never made a movie like this before.
Had you ever been in that position before, though, where someone had written a role for you? And it must be a strange feeling reading the script.
No, my experience is I was always the last person on earth they wanted. I remember when Alfie, everybody was offered. I was sharing a flat with Terence Stamp, and he was offered Alfie. I spent 3 days trying to talk him into doing it. Tony Newley turned it down. Lawrence Harvey turned it down. None of them wanted to do it. But I even auditioned in the theatre to play it, and I didn't get it then either. And so Lewis Gilbert was desperate. But what happened was there was a guy who, I forget his name, he became a director, but he was editing Ipcress file. And he said he was looking for, he described the sort of character. He said, have a look at Ipcress file, see what you think of this guy, Michael Caine. And so he said, I'll give him a go, let's do it. So we did it. But it was, I was always the last resort on anything, I mean, for instance, like Zulu, which was my first big proper role in a movie, I went up to play, I was in a play and I was playing a Cockney in the play, and the American director, Cy Enfield, saw me in the play and he wanted me to play the Cockney corporal. And so I went to meet him a couple of days later. I didn't have a telephone, so they couldn't phone me. And so when I got there, he said, I'm terribly sorry, we cast James Booth as the corporal. So I said, that's fine, because I've been turned down for everything. It didn't matter. And it was in the Prince of Wales Theatre, and my entire career is based on two things. One, the length of the bar in where we were, the bar in the Prince of Wales Theatre. And then the other one was the fact that he was American. Because as I was going, he said, come back. So I said, what? He said, can you do a posh accent? I said, yeah, I've been in rep for 9 years. I can do any bloody accent. I played everything. So he said, all right. He said, because I was very tall and thin with long blonde hair, and he said, you don't look like a Cockney to me. So I said, well, I don't know what that means, but I am a Cockney, I'm a real one. He said, but no, you look more like, an officer type. So, and I did it. But what I always think about the class system in England, if that had been a British director, even if he was a left-wing communist, he would not have cast me as an officer, I promise you.
How was it on set with Sorrentino? Because have you reached a stage in your career now where you think you've seen it all with directors, or did Sorrentino have a few surprises up his sleeve for you?
Oh yeah, but it's always very quiet. He's the quietest director. I always find the best directors are the quiet ones. The ones who start yelling and bawling, they don't seem to be very good. But Paolo, he knows exactly what he wants. what he did, like, he would say to you with a scene, if you're supposed to be angry, he'd go, all right, be really angry. Then he'd say, all right, hardly be angry at all. Okay, be medium angry. You know, and it's that, he wouldn't say, I want you to say this way. You know, very few directors do.
How quickly did Fred kind of come together as a character? Because, I mean, one of the things I was interested in on as a script is this is a man, relatively young man in his 40s, Sorrentino, but writing about a man, you know, in a certain stage of his life.
Well, he was writing about old age, really, wasn't he? I mean...
So how accurate did he get it? I mean, how accurate did he get it from your point of view?
Oh, completely. There's a scene, there's two lines in the scene. There's a scene where I've had all the examinations. I'm going to see my doctor to get the results, you know, and he says to me, I said, what's the result? He said, you're fine. You're absolutely clear. And then he says to me, you know what we call that, don't you? I said, what? He said, youth. That's where the title of the movie comes from. And then, but before that, he says to me, he says, what is old age like? And I say, I don't understand how I got here. And that meant something to me because, I mean, I'm 82, and, like, I feel that 5 years ago I was 38, and I don't know where all the rest of the time went. You know, but I mean, you're happy to be, you're happy to be there, you know. But I mean, but like sometimes reporters will say to me, "How do you feel about growing old?" I said, "Well, considering the alternative, fantastic." You know.
We're all glad you're here as well.
I'm glad I'm here, yeah.
We're all glad. We're all glad. I wondered if you felt any connection with him musically, because, you know, people may be aware or may not be aware. I mean, you're a very musical man yourself. You know, you've sung on screen, you've written, you've released an album.
I sang on screen, but that was with Kermit the Frog.
Still, it's a wonderful moment.
Well, for talking to that, they always say, "Have you ever been directed by a woman?" I say, "Yes, Miss Piggy." Frank Oz directed Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. I did sing. I'm not a good singer, but I've always been interested in every kind of music. I've been interested in. I make my own records. I do everything, my own things and stuff. But I mean, in the '60s, I was known as Disco Mike because I was forever dancing in discos, you know, and I loved that. I love disco music.
Can I call you that?
No.
Oh. I thought I should check.
No, nobody ever calls me Mike, you know.
Disco Michael?
Disco Michael.
Right, fine.
Sir Disco Michael.
I could monopolise the conversation with Sir Disco Michael all night, but I am aware that
no, it's okay.
Other people will have questions. So if you do, yes, and I'll try and make sure I get around to everyone. There will be a microphone coming around, yes? Here it comes. Here it comes.
Thank you. A really wonderful film and a fantastic performance. I mean, it's a surreal script. When you started to read it, I would like to know how you sort of got through that. What were your feelings? Because it is quite surreal. And as you said before, it's quite a different thing to what you've done in the past.
Well, that's the reason for it, because it's different. Because I always regard myself as retired. And, you know, then they give me a script that I just can't refuse, which is, in this case, it's obviously that. But the great thing about that was the treatment of age, you know, because I'm getting older now. And I thought the way he did it was fabulous, because he said, if you're young, you don't need to be afraid, because it's going to be all right when you get there, and you'll be lucky if you do. And so that's what appealed to me about it. And also, I became an actor in the 50s in the theatre. I mean, I'm a Cockney-oic from the Elephant and Castle, you know, so my chances of making any success were kind of minimal. So I knew I was never going to be a star. I knew I was never going to be famous, and I knew I was never going to be rich. So what I did was, I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be the best actor I can possibly be. I have no sense of competition with other actors. My competition is me. And I'm always looking for something that is as far away from me as you can get. And in this case, obviously, a classical musical composer and conductor was a big jump for me to do, and this is what attracted me to it. 'Cause I just like to be challenged in everything, and the basic thing is to make me disappear, and then to make the acting disappear. Because if someone is sitting in an audience and one turns to the other watching a film and said, "Isn't that Michael Caine a good actor?" then I've failed, because what you should be saying is, "What's Fred going to do now?" That's the difference.
Have you found it liberating getting older as an actor? Because I suppose you moved from being a movie star, which you were a genuine movie star,
I was a movie
to becoming
star.
a movie actor.
Well, yeah, well, there's a point. You're a movie star, which means you get the girl. You know, it's only the star gets the girl. And then you become a movie actor, which is where you get the part. And that happened to me when I was about 60 or so, and I got a script, and I sent it back to the producer with a note saying, I didn't want to do it, the part was too small. And he sent the script back with a note saying, I wanted you to read the father, not the lover. And I knew it was over then. So I didn't get the girl anymore.
Start of a wonderful new chapter, sure.
Yeah, well, oh no, for me it's been great. It's been great because you suddenly get these incredible parts to play.
Yes, just over here in the middle.
Sir Michael.
Oh, hang on, there is a microphone coming.
Thank you. Sorry. Sir Michael, congratulations. One of the big things that, for me, I thought was very impressive was the notion of timing with this film. Timing in the way it was shot, the editing, but particularly the performance. And I wondered if you could say a bit about that, whether it just came about, whether you rehearsed scenes, how some of the way it was played with the timing was just incredible.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what you do with Paolo. I walked on this. The first scene I did in the movie was when I'm talking to the Queen's agent, and he asked me to do the music, and I turned it down. That was about 5 pages of dialogue. It was my first morning on the movie, and I walked on, and I said, okay, we'll have a rehearsal. And Paolo said, we don't rehearse. I said, what? He said, we shoot everything, just in case there's something good there. So you rehearse on film. And I thought, oh, my God, you know. And one of the reasons they do that now is because they have digital cameras. They used to rehearse a lot so you get it right because they didn't want to waste film, which was expensive. Now, they could just, they can have you there doing a 20-minute scene. So I'd started and screwed it up almost immediately. And then he said, I expected him to say, cut, we'll start again. He said, go back a couple of lines and then keep going. And then that's what he did the whole time. So any fear of drying went, and so you never screwed up again. And that's the difference in modern movie making and when I was young. You know, you had to get it absolutely right. But now he said, just go back and do it this way, that way, and it's all. And he has 3 cameras. Also, and with digitals, it's a great thing because you don't have to wait till tomorrow for rushes. At lunchtime, they all sit in a mobile cinema and watch rushes. It's amazing. I like it like that.
Fred's a very kind of interior, almost deadpan character, though, isn't he? I'm assuming that's something that comes with experience. I mean, obviously, you have to have a confidence to do that anyway. But I mean, he's very hard to read at times.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's supposed to be, but what happens is, I mean, I've never composed music, and I've never conducted. Well, I have now, but I've never conducted a symphony orchestra. But I've been a human being all that time. And I've been a man who has grown older and with all the emotions and exactly the same things that happened to him. And I reacted myself different ways to which he reacted. But I knew how to react in another way. We all do, you know, because you know someone else who did that. It wasn't like you. So that's how, the thing to do is to just, for me, is to just go for the reality of the person and make the acting disappear.
Yes, here, and then we'll come forward.
Can you tell us a bit about working with Harvey Keitel and whether you learnt anything from him?
Harvey is great. We were very lucky because we were supposed to be old friends and we didn't know each other. But we both had something in common. We were both infantrymen, and that, if you've been, I was in the Korean War, and if you've been an infantryman, you have a different view of life than most other people, except for other infantrymen. And so we were that. The only thing is, if he was here now, and I said infantryman, he'd go, I'm a Marine. I'm not an infantryman. I'm a Marine. But he was a Marine, Harvey. So we had this to start with. And also, he's a fabulous actor, as you know. And he's a wonderful guy. And we really did become friends.
Yes, there was a question here in the second row.
A few weeks ago, you did a play called Next Time I'll Sing to You. Is there not quite some similarity between that and this film?
Next time, that was the play that I did when I got Zulu. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that was an extraordinary play because it was based on a real thing. It was based on a real story. But there was an old man who had never spoken to anybody for 40 years. He never said a word. And the vicar used to take him groceries and stuff every Friday for the weekend and everything. And he did it for 40 years. And this one Friday, he took the stuff, and the man said, next time I'll sing to you, and dropped dead. And that's a true story. But in the play, I played, and we were actors rehearsing to do this story. And I didn't like the play, and I didn't like my part, and I didn't want to do it. And so I did a lot to the audience. I kept saying, "What is a piece of shit this is?" You know, and it was quite funny, you know. What was the question?
I don't think that matters anymore, does it?
There was the age thing about Next Time I'll Sing to You, wasn't there?
What? I don't understand what you mean. What?
Well, similarity between this film and that.
Oh, growing old. Yeah, but I didn't play it. No, I did. The guy was dead when we were the bit that we were doing was what happened after he died. I think it was a long time ago.
I may move on in search of another
It
question.
was 60 years ago.
Yes, right at the back. Sorry, Suzanne, right at the back.
Oh, not at all. Hands up there.
Hey, how close was the final film to the script that you read? Because I just imagine this is the sort of film where a lot of it comes together in the edit.
Well, no, we never did any ad-libbing at all. I don't remember. There was no...
I meant more that the sort of sequence of events, how much of that was put together after the film was shot, or how much it resembled the script?
There's a tremendous amount of that with Paolo. You would have no idea, we would have no idea what the finished film was going to be like. I mean, it probably is similar. I haven't read the script for a long time. But he gets up to all sorts of things. You know, you never know what's going to happen.
I wanted to ask you about Rachel Weisz as well, because I mean, some of the work you do on screen with her is pretty extraordinary and also really raw emotionally. So I wanted to ask you about, you've kind of covered the lack of rehearsal time already, but how much time did you get to prepare with Rachel? I mean, did you know her beforehand? I'm hoping the first time you met her wasn't the mud bath scene, because that would be a strange way to...
That was the first time I met her.
Wow, there we are. Okay.
And that was her first scene in the movie.
Okay, so tell us about
that. We just did that. We got covered in mud, said hello. And as you do. And we just laid down. The funniest thing was, to me, was the one where we were in bed together. Yeah, that was weird. I suppose because she didn't want to leave home. She was very close to her father. But no, Rachel is, as you see, is a fabulous actress, but also happens to be one of the nicest people you've ever met in your life, you know? And so is Daniel. I saw a picture in the paper I was in Los Angeles last week, and I was posing with Rachel, and there was a picture in the paper of Rachel with her husband, James Bond, and it was me. I mean, I wonder how he got the part.
You mentioned the bed scene, actually, and when you have those kind of moments, certainly on this film, for instance, where something not that you think it's wrong necessarily, but it intrigues you. Will you talk to the director beforehand, or will you just kind of crack on with the script?
No, I just got on with it. We all got on with it. The actors. Remember, we're all speaking English. The crew's Italian. Paolo doesn't speak a lot of Italian, so we all take. So we don't ask him. We get in and we do it. We forget it. And so when we, I mean, we thought the scene in the beds was very funny, Rachel and I, but we just got on with it. Yeah.
Okay, we've got time for another couple of questions, if there are any. Have people just been stunned by the opulence of the film? Yes, we've got one here, and then we'll come here.
Having an Italian director doing a story about old age, I just wondered if you felt there were any differences between an Italian's view of old age and a British view.
Yeah, I suppose the Italian, in the case of Paolo, I mean, he's trying to make old age as young as possible for everybody, so that you're not afraid to get there. And that's exactly my view of old age. You know, I don't feel I'm old anyway, except when too many stairs. that gets me sometimes.
Yes, it was just here in the third row back. Oh, you've got.
I hope you don't think this question is trivial, having just viewed what I believe is masterpiece. But it gave me great cinematic pleasure to see in a film that, that's partly about filmmaking, the reuniting of the two stars of Hurry Sundown. Although they didn't have a scene together. Did you meet up again?
That was fabulous, yeah. That was directed by Otto Preminger. It wasn't a success. We used to call it, German, so we called it Behaltet Sonnenuntergangen, which is German for Hurry Sundown. And I did a southern accent in it, which is, I said, Vivian Lee had done Gone with the Wind, and I met her one day and I said, how do you do a southern accent? She said, you say four-door Ford all day. And that's what I did, said four-door Ford, but the line wasn't in the movie.
Did you meet up again with Jane Fonda on the shoot of this?
Oh yeah, all the time. We had dinner together and everything. She's lovely. She's a very happy girl. She's very good at this. I wish she was here because she's very funny. And you know, this is the first time I've done this on my own. I've been in America doing it with all the lot of them.
Yeah, he was nervous about this.
Yeah, because usually I sit there for about 6 questions and then I get one. You know, this time I get them all.
Yeah, we prefer it that way, though.
But Jane is lovely, really lovely.
Let me ask you about Paul Dano as well, because with a younger actor, I'm wondering if, I mean, do they seek your advice, or do you choose to give it, or is it just?
I'd always say to young actors, never ask old actors for any advice, because everyone I asked for advice told me to give it up. True. They said, give it up, Michael. You're an ugly little sod. You'll never get anywhere.
We've got time for possibly one more question. I may nab it. If not, okay.
There's one there. Look in the middle.
There is. Oh, no, hang on. There's one here too that's springing up.
Thank you. Just one comparison with Wes Anderson's work. In some ways, I think I remember asking some of the cast at another BAFTA screening what they'd actually thought of a film that they'd been in. I think it was the Darjeeling Express. And the actors basically just hadn't a clue what it was going to look like until it actually came out, and it ended up being much better than they thought. I mean, is the movie, in a sense, better than your expectation, or what? Where does it lie? I don't mean worse. You're not going to say worse.
No,
but
no.
Did it surprise you in ways that seem to be very different from?
Oh, the way he did it, but not. I mean, I just thought the script was incredible, and from my point of view, it was a great part, and so I was happy with it. Even when I saw it, I was happy with it, which is not always the case. But he does so many things with the movie, you have no idea what the hell's going to come out. And I love what he did, Paolo.
Was there one more? Yes, here.
Thank you. You may have answered this already, but what would you tell the struggling young actor? You know, if you could speak to yourself when you were a struggling young actor now, what would you tell him?
A struggling young actor now, I'd accept everything. People said to me when I was younger, "Oh, you did this film and it was crap." But what happens is, if you sit around waiting for the great director to come and give you the great part, it takes a little while. And you wind up on Monday morning and someone says action, and you haven't been in a movie for 2 years, you're in dire straits. So just get on with it and learn how to do it and be critical of yourself and never be conceited about it because you're not that good.
Now, before we go, one question. So the movie is just about to come out in America, so you've been doing press out there. And I was reading in one of the LA papers this morning, you describing yourself, you touched on it earlier as well, saying, "I'm retired." So I want to ascertain that is a misprint, isn't it? You're not retired.
No,
you can't retire.
I keep I retired when I got the letter saying you don't get the girl, you get, you don't read the lover, read the father. I retired for 2 years then. And I was living in Miami, and there was a little colony of us in Miami, or Hollywood. It was with Jack Nicholson, Oliver Stone, Sly Stallone, and Madonna. We were the little group down there. And then I hadn't made a movie for about 2 years because I'd retired. And Jack got this script, and we made this movie together. It wasn't a hit, the movie, because there was no one to root for. I forget what it was called. Anyway. It was J-Lo's first movie as well. She was very good in it. Jennifer Lopez. It was her first film as an actress. And we did it, and it wasn't a success, but it got me back into it, and I wanted to be an actor again. And Jack is such a fabulous person and a great friend and such a fabulous actor. And I thought, yeah, we had so much fun on that movie. I thought, I'm going to do this again. And 30 years later, here I am, still doing it.
I'm afraid we will have to leave it there, but please join me in thanking Sir
Thank
Michael
you very
Disco
much.
Caine.
Thank you.
So, welcome, and in order across here we have the director Paolo Sorrentino, his translator, Harvey Keitel, Michael Caine, and Paul Dano. Thank you very much. Now, we've only got 3 mics between us, so we'll have to fight. And there's also another mic in the audience for your questions. Now, I'm just going to ask like one question each because I know you'll probably have a lot to ask about this wonderful, tender, witty film. So let me begin with you. After winning the Oscar for The Great Beauty, you came back again to Memory and Loss, but in the English language. Why did you decide to do that?
In English language?
The story and the language as well.
No, in English language because it was a movie about a Hollywood director and about a composer, and I have for this reason, un Hollywood director, it was avevo bisogno che fosse un regista americano e per il direttore d'orchestra, per il compositore di musica avevo in mente solo e esclusivamente Michael Caine, per questo ho pensato di farlo in inglese.
Well, first of all, Paolo really needed a Hollywood director, and as far as the character of the conductor is concerned, he only had in mind Michael Caine for the part.
You wrote the part for Michael Caine?
Yeah.
And would you have done the film without him?
No, without him.
I didn't know this. I was amazed when I was offered the script that he'd heard of me. It's true, I'd seen all of his work, but I didn't expect him to have seen any of mine. You know.
let me ask you, Michael, about your conducting skills, because presumably there were nil when you began, but you trained with the LSO.
Oh, blimey, after 4 weeks I trained with 2 conductors. I had 2 conductors, and it was a nightmare because it was very difficult. But I also had an earpiece in, and they were telling me things to do and everything. And when we finished, the lead violinist came up to me and he said, "You're better than the bloke we had yesterday." So I must have got it right somewhere along the line. But it's great to do things like that. And it's very typical of this movie because I've made loads and loads of movies, and one of the great things about the script was that everything I did, I'd never done before. Each of the scenes, I'd never done a scene like this before. You know, and I've made, 126 movies. Some of them were quite short, actually, but so I've taken up the time.
That's great. Harvey, let me come to you because you've made probably 126 movies too, but this was a particular.
123, Michael's
okay. This was a particularly juicy part for you, and I just loved the scene with Jane Fonda when she absolutely takes you on. Tell us a little bit about that.
I have the most difficult time talking about this movie, to be honest with you. I really do. Because I feel that everything I need to say about this movie is on the screen, written by Paolo, and acted out by all the actors that you know. And to say something about something, I find to be just very hard to do. For me, this is a film that foments discussion. So I have nothing to say except I'd like to talk to all of you about it over a drink. Although I think I get drunk. But maybe one day we can have that drink.
We could move to the bar if you want. I was just
I already have.
So have I.
But one of the things about the movie is your fantastic friendship, and I noticed actually when I first saw this in Caine, and you were doing some Q&A in Caine as well, and you were calling one another by military names, and you were calling him Private Micklethwaite, which was his original name. And so you've got this background in the military or something. You've got something going, haven't you?
Well,
we're both ex-soldiers. That's where we met. We're both not just ex-soldiers, ex-infantrymen, which does make a little bit of difference.
I felt that the real bond was because Michael was in the British Army and I was in the American Marines, and we spoke a language that we couldn't repeat here now. I guess you probably know what I mean. And that was the real bond between us.
Also like to talk to Paul, because you do, hello. You do a lot of sitting and observing in this movie. Were you also sitting and observing this lot and coming to conclusions about your future in acting?
Yeah, right. What a pleasure to sit there and, you know, study these guys, soak it up, learn what to do, what not to do.
Oh,
yeah. That's something interesting about. I was actually curious about this myself. Paolo's still a young man to be writing this film, and being a young man looking at the two guys in it, I was wondering, okay, is this part of hope for the future as an artist and part of the fear of the future as an artist? It was but I have to say I was really inspired by not just how much pleasure these guys get in their work, but how much they still put into it, and it's certainly something to aspire to.
Fantastic. Can we open to the audience, and if you'd like to raise your hand, and we'll send a roving mic.
Yeah, look.
Oh, no, it's a roving mic.
What do you want to say?
Michael, just to say that you've, having done so much for so long, and I mean your biography, What's It All About, is an inspiration. I mean, it's a recommended reading, and I remember some of the struggles you had when you were younger. But today, for example, we have a lot of people. If you take the X Factor, for example, they're just on for a year and then they're discarded. How do you, with this kind of immediacy, that's the pressure that people have, what sort of pressure, what sort of advice would you give to the people?
On the X Factor?
Not to the, no, not to the X Factor, but also to the people who want to maintain, consistency, to have a longer career, for example.
Well, I always remember the one thing that my motto to myself, I had a very rough young life and a very difficult entrance into the show business. I didn't go to RADA or anything. I answered an advert in the stage for an assistant stage manager. That's how I started to become an actor. But I always remember my thing for me was something that Winston Churchill said. And he said, if you're going through hell, keep going. And that's me.
Over there in the back. Just that, yeah.
Hello. It's difficult. I feel like I'm coming across as a bit of an oaf. Two things. Firstly, quickly, Harvey, I just need to say that a film that you made so long ago had a huge effect on me when I was at film school, which was Fingers, which blew my mind at the time, and I just want to say thank you very much for that. But the question I really have is to Paolo, which is, and something in The Great Beauty as well, is a quite wonderful integration of music in your film, which is truly mind-blowing and opens a whole bunch of questions in my mind about the creative process, about when you are thinking of a script, are you coming up with the music before you write, or in conjunction when you write? Are these things at the same time? Because it's a very deep relationship, the music and the text, and yeah, I'd just like your perspective on that. Yeah, thanks.
No, di solito uso la musica per scrivere la sceneggiatura, quindi la musica è tutta quanta prima prevista. E non riesco a scrivere se non ho già in mente le musiche che voglio mettere in quella idea di film. Però per questo film alcune musiche le ho dovute far fare al musicista, e quindi è andata un po' diversamente.
It's such an integral part that normally Paolo has in mind the score beforehand, the music, but in this particular film he had to commission somebody to write a score, so things went slightly differently during the course of this film.
Could you also explain the presence of Paloma Faith?
No, but my wife found out Paloma Faith. I didn't know her, and she told me you have to look her. And she was exactly what I was looking for that role, that kind of woman, and that kind of crazy singer and a funny singer. And so she was perfect for the role, and I asked her to play that. Then I found out that she was a big fan of The Great Beauty, so everything was easy to do.
Another question? There? Just here?
Hi. With a film with so many layers, so many elements to it, such sort of poignancy and pathos and tragedy and wonderful emotions and so on, and great humor and so on. How does it feel to know that every individual in the audience will take something very different from it, and that some audiences will laugh in some places and some people will be touched by other moments, and that there's so much to it that it won't all come across to everybody at the same time,
Penso che sia il compito di un film, anche perché un regista fa un film ogni 2 anni, quindi cerca di metterci un gran numero di cose dentro a patto che esse siano coerenti. Quindi sono molto felice se ognuno si prende quello che gli serve. Un film non deve avere un'unica idea, un'unica strada, deve poi avere più di uno.
That's exactly the role that a film should have. And if you think about it, a film director makes an average film every 2 years, so Paolo likes to put a lot into it. And then each and everyone can take out what they need. And it's very, very happy when different people take different things out of it.
Another question? Over here, can you manage in the corner there?
Congratulations, an amazing film, very emotional as well. Could I ask Paolo, how was it directing an English script, an English-speaking cast?
Ma con attori così bravi è stato molto facile, proprio devo dire che per me alle volte era imbarazzante, mi sembrava di fare più lo spettatore che il regista, sì. Quando ci sono degli attori così straordinari, anche fare un film in inglese che non è la mia lingua diventa molto molto facile. È stato, per me è stato un privilegio essere il primo spettatore di questo film e di averli così vicini. Era abbastanza eccitante, impressionante vederli da vicino.
With a cast of this caliber, Paolo almost felt it was the first member of the audience to see this film. So it was more of a spectator. I think it was, he said it was awe-inspiring to see what they would come out with. So it feels it was the first person to see this film.
Can I just ask the same question the other way round? Which is, what was it like for the cast to work with an art director in Italian through a translator without the immediacy of actually having the to and fro that you often have when working?
Shall I answer that? I've got a mic, yeah. It was terribly easy, actually, because we could all sort of talk to each other, and he didn't know what we were talking about. So it was the easiest film I ever made.
The gentleman here.
So I've got a question for Paul. Paul, you were talking about watching your fellow cast members, and I wonder what lessons you drew from your observations.
Gotta answer that in front of them. You know, I honestly think I started to say that you know, often, you know, all we really have to offer at the end of the day is ourselves, you know, so that I do think there's only so much you can it's not, I'm not looking to take away like technique, right? So I think what I was saying before you know, to see these guys still searching in the scenes, you know, not just showing up and saying the lines and being respectful of the process and the moment, and doing such beautiful work. And we did a lot of night shoots, working hard, and again also, you know, finding pleasure in it. You know, that was I think that was the thing to be inspired by. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask too was, were you all actually trapped in this hotel in the Swiss Alps, and were you inspired by, you know, 8.5 or last year at Marianne Bad? Where did that kind of trapped in the resort feeling come from?
No, ero più ispirato dai racconti di alcuni amici che andavano in questi alberghi dove mi raccontavano che si facevano la pulizia completa dell'intestino, quindi era più l'ispirazione era più terra, diciamo.
It was not that higher inspiration. It was Paolo's been much more inspired by the tales of some friends of his who would go to such resorts and have complete intestinal cleansing.
More questions from the audience at the very back there, lady.
First of all, fantastic quality. The word that came to mind watching it after it all ended was pure class. I found that a real insightful film. Fantastic on every front. Completely agree with this lady over there that said so many different levels could be appreciated by so different age groups, I think. Some jokes, this, that and the other, appreciated by different ages. What came to mind the moment you walked down the alleyway was, thank God Harvey Keitel is still alive. The other thing, during the movie, I'm sorry to come up with this, but I'm a big fan of Michael Caine, I always have been, and when I was watching the film, one of your comments during an interview a while back was when you were in Ireland, and there was somebody taking you to a room, and he said to you just before going in, have you got a good memory for faces? And you said, excuse me? He said, have you got a good memory for faces? And you said, yes, I'm not bad. And he said, good, because there's no mirror in your room. And I kept thinking of this. During the movie, I thought, he goes into Michael Caine, he's going to come up. Anyway, I so enjoyed it, and thank you very, very much for that movie.
We've got time for a couple more. Gentleman here.
I just wanted to ask from the actors, in a film as diverse as this, is there a starting point, having read the script and talked to the director? Some people say it's the walk, it's the shoes, it's the way you stand, the clothes. Is there a starting point in a film as complex as this that you start to base the character upon?
Me,
to all three of you?
Shall I go first? I'm C, so I'm alphabetically. My characterization always is, and it may seem funny to you, but it's quite serious, is the haircut. You judge people by their haircut. You look around and look at people, and you see their haircut. And I always change my hair, no matter what it is. This is my haircut. And no matter what it is, I never have played a part with this haircut. It's always something different. I mean, you may not even notice it, but I know it. And so I start with the haircut. What do you start with, Harvey?
Well, when I wake up in the morning, I start with how I get across the street. I start with, can I get across the street safely? And that's about it. Every day is a different moment, and how do you make it through the day? How do you find a place to start? Michael finds the hair.
Yeah. Paul?
You know, somebody else might find something else.
Paul, I'm the interviewer now. Just tell us a story. Sorry about that. We're splitting the difference.
You know, every time it's different. I will say that as a testament to Paolo's writing, there's a lot of love in the details, and there's a lot of magic in the small things, and those things become very, very big, and I love that, and that's sometimes a nice clue. So if he wrote something about sunglasses, you know, that's a good place to start, or whatever it is. But it's really nice when you have great clues and great writing.
Over there.
Can I ask Paolo about his editing process? Are things sort of very rigid in your head? You know what you're going to do when you get in the edit suite. You know everything. You know how you've shot it. That's how it goes together. Or do things change quite a lot when you're cutting? I notice your editor also does documentaries as well as fiction. Does that play any part? Is that Sorry, did that question make sense?
No, di documentari non devo dire ne so poco e anche il mio montatore penso non ne sappia tanto. No, in realtà il processo di montaggio è semplicissimo, seguiamo la sceneggiatura per un po', poi a un certo punto sia io che il mio montatore ci annoiamo della cronologia della sceneggiatura e cominciamo a muovere le scene. Infatti anche in questo film molte scene non sono al loro posto, sono state totalmente messe in altri punti. E poi sperimentiamo con la musica, giochiamo con la musica, un po' con quello che appunto ho usato io per scrivere, altre le sentiamo, passiamo molto tempo ad ascoltare la musica, questo sì, e poi a un certo punto il film diventa così noioso che decidiamo che è finito il montaggio.
No, documentary, nothing to do with it. Basically, to start with, they stick to the script. And they listen to the music that Paolo was listening to as he was writing it. Then they get bored. So they start messing up with the timeline contained in the script, which is something that happened quite a lot in this film. Then when they get totally bored, then the film is over.
I'm afraid on that note, and I know you're not totally bored, we need to let these people get back to the bar. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you.